So there's a man, and he's standing there on the edge of the cliff, and he's looking out over the Mediterranean Sea, and he's kind of trembling. He's crying, actually. And he looks down in one hand, and he's got a crumpled up sheet of paper, and in the other hand, he's got a bouquet of flowers. And he wipes a tear from his eye. Oh, Angiolina, why did it have to be this way? He's 38 years old, he's got a successful career, and he's got more money than he knows what to do with. But what does any of that matter if your wife has recently passed away? He looks up to the sea again, wipes another tear from his eye. I swear, Angiolina, this world may have forgotten about you, but this world will never forget about my love for you. Welcome to ARCHWOAH with Mason O. This is a story about one man's dream to transform a shabby little fishing village into one of the most special cities in Croatia. All he needed to do was visit once and see that beautiful view over the Mediterranean coast, and he knew this is the place where someone could fall in love. He would buy some land, he would build his estate, and he would name the gardens after his recently deceased wife, who he missed so terribly. And he would say, this villa will have flowers, it will have gardens, it will have walkways, and it will have visitors from all over the world. Anyone and everyone are invited, especially those in love. This is the architectural history of the little music pavilion in Villa Angiolina. So, we always start by asking the question, what is architecturally unique about the little music pavilion in Villa Angiolina? Well, obviously, the little pavilion is just one tiny sprinkle on the birthday cake that is the entire park. But if we're going to talk about the park, we'd be talking about a lot of landscape architecture and tourism history and stuff like that. I care about this one little feature right here with the cute little statue of the violin player on it. Ready? So here we go. Okay, so we are in Croatia, and you know what that means. The Mediterranean. So when we say that a place has Mediterranean culture or Mediterranean lifestyle, we're talking about all the countries that border the Mediterranean Sea, right? And the little portion of the Mediterranean that we're talking about, which Croatia is up against, is the Adriatic Sea, okay? So it's kind of like the 1790s, and what's going on at that time? America was just founded about 15 or so years ago in 1776. Lewis and Clark are on their little expedition right now. And the French Revolution is happening at this time. Okay, so that's where we are. So 1790s, and we're in Croatia on the Mediterranean. And there's this little city called Opatija. And right now, Opatija is just a cluster of little shanty houses and overgrown woods, and it's just this shabby little fishing village. Not that much going on for it. Okay, so let's get into our story here. Okay, so we're gonna say part one, Iginio, the man, the myth, the legend. Okay, and then part two, the architecture, right? And part three, the little violin player, the little statue on the front of the pavilion. Oh my goodness. Okay, so ready? So here we go. So part one. So Iginio is the main character of this story, and he's born in 1794. He's Italian, and he's got rich parents, and he grows up with a career basically handed to him. He's a merchant. He's just as good at being a merchant as his dad, and he's got a ton of money. The family's got a ton of money, and I don't want you to just think that money and wealth has influenced his personality. He's also got a little bit of a soft spot for nature, and he loves plants, and he loves being outside. He's got a soft spot for nature. Okay, so he's a little bit of an artsy boy. Okay, so picture this. So you're in your 30s now. You are Iginio Scarpa, and you've got money. You've got a beautiful wife that you love. You are so passionately in love with her. You two have a son. All of your friends are aristocrats too. Okay, that's your life. Okay, so you decide that with your beautiful wife and all this money that you have, that you need to go build your vacation home, right? Where's that going to be? You go traveling around the world, and you're like, this little this little Opatija place, it's kind of got a summery climate all the time. I heard that the Mediterranean coast is really awesome. Let me go see for myself. So he visits Opatija. It's this shanty little village. But when he stands on that coast and sees the curvature of the Mediterranean Sea with the rocks and the mountains in the distance, he says, oh my gosh, there is something beautiful about this place. This is where we have to build our summer home. So he plans to build a summer home, a summer getaway for his family in Opatija. And of course, he's going to do a bunch of renovation, right? He's going to clear the trees, refurbish the land. It's not just going to be a house. It's going to be an estate, a whole estate. So he gets there, he gets the money in order, and along the way, Angiolina dies. That is so terrible. You know how death can be in those days. Just sort of, one day the rug is just pulled out from under you, disease strikes or something like that. And we don't know the cause of her death, but I'm sure it was one of those, well, nothing we can do, and she's gone. So he's got all these plans for the summer home, but she has already died. So he's so heartbroken, and he has this big vision for the estate, and he doesn't want to just give up on everything because now he doesn't have a wife anymore. In fact, he does the opposite. He dedicates the whole entire project to her, and he says, I'm going to make this as big and beautiful as conceivable. He says, I want to make a lasting impact. I want this to be my legacy project. I want this to be the most meaningful mark on the world that I can leave to show my love for Angiolina, right? So he says, we can't just have a mansion without gardens, right? And we can't just have gardens without hotels nearby. And we can't just do a little small development. It's got to be big. It has to be grand. It has to be open to as many people as possible so that everyone can experience this. And it's just going to last the test of time. Just like his love for Angiolina, right? So the whole entire project is going to be a celebration, and it will be called Villa Angiolina, okay? So we are now in 1844. Let's get started with the construction. He's going to basically redevelop this whole entire chunk of Opatija along the Mediterranean edge, okay? Here we go. Part 2, the architecture of Villa Angiolina. It's 1844, okay? And the house, the summer home, that is really just like item number 1, okay? He finishes the mansion in 1844, and what's next? There's going to be inns, there's going to be seaside buildings, greenhouses, future expansions, right? And he even said one of the buildings that he wanted to build was a sanatorium. A sanatorium in the olden days, that was like a nursing sanctuary type of hospital, okay? That'll be relevant later. So I think the primary work that's happening in these first 15 years are the plants. They're going to invite their foreign friends from around the world to come visit, and they're going to ask them to bring plants and seeds with them from their part of the world. And then they're going to have plants from all over the world at this garden. That is just fantastic to me. So he's having all these dinners, these fancy social parties, wining and dining with all his friends. But of course, in the background, there's big sacks of seeds, and the horticulturalists are working their magic to get these foreign and exotic plants laid out in a garden. And you have to realize, too, Iginio pulled out all the stakes for this, right? He's looking for the top planters and top gardeners and top-of-the-line horticulturalists to come here, experts in their craft who can nurture these seeds and make sure that they are healthy at all times. And so that's a common theme that you're going to notice. Every time he does something, he tries to do it at a very high quality. So we get through 15 years or so of the initial plantings, and then it's going to come time to hire a new designer so that we can work on the master plan of the whole entire garden with all the architectural amenities, okay? So on his team, he's going to recruit the best of the best. He says there's this wonderful man named Heinrich Karl Schubert. I want Karl Schubert on my team. He's this esteemed artist from Austria, a longtime painter and teacher of painting, and he's extremely talented at watercolor and painting landscapes. He's particularly famous for his flowers, okay? This man, Karl Schubert, he studied fine arts. He took tons of excursions to study abroad along the way, and he has been commissioned to paint plenty of scenes and portraits for royalty and noble people and all of his aristocratic friends. Okay, so he's got connections, basically, Karl Schubert, right? He's in the upper crust of society, and at one point he's working for the government designing parks and landscapes. So no surprise, Iginio wants him on his team to be the designer for Villa Angiolina. Okay, so we get Karl Schubert on the team, and the two of them put their heads together, and they start laying out all of these parts of the complex, all these parts to the garden. So we've got all these plants being planted, and we've got fountains and water wells and greenhouses and all these amenities. But I want to zoom in on one that has been here since the very beginning, and that's this little hut set aside for music playing, okay? And all through the park's life so far, this has been sort of just like a shack made with just like reclaimed wood logs and like a thatchy roof, just kind of like a hut. And this was important to have from day one because music is very important to Opatija. Opatija takes pride in its musical traditions, as many cultures do, and they have musical festivals here. So there's no way that this park was going to be developed without a place to celebrate the music and for players to play. So people would gather around this little hut, and they would have their little performances, and that was great. But Karl Schubert said, when we design this further, we're going to take the music pavilion up a notch. And he designed something really nice, something really straightforward, not trying to draw too much attention to itself, not extravagant, not loud, just almost with the same subtlety as the original little hut that the musicians have pulled together. But he just has this simple, straightforward pavilion, and it's very clean, and it makes you want to pause, and it's the perfect place for a couple of people to perform for a small crowd or play some fiddle or just a jam sesh with the bros, you know. And it's one of the most important highlights of the park, right behind being a celebration of love, letting this place be a park of love, letting it be a celebration of Opatija's music. That's great. Really plays a supporting role in the park of love here. It doesn't try to compete with the fact that there's elderly couples on a stroll or a wedding going on in the garden nearby. Really additive, not subtractive, I would say. So it's a sweet little pavilion, and it does everything that it needs to do and nothing more. And it's perfect as an architectural structure. But the cherry on top is that Karl Schubert left a place right here for a commissioned sculpture. And I have a lot to say about this little handsome devil right here. But we're going to put a pin in that, and we're going to come back to that later. Okay, so what happens next, okay? They build all of these hotels. They build all the greenhouses. They have all these moments with big palm trees and oases of green and big flower beds. And they never actually build the sanatorium, but it's okay because Iginio says, I believe all the beautiful nature still captures the healing essence that a sanatorium would have. So sweet. Okay. So anyway, so now Iginio's getting older. He's going to die within the next decade or so. And all these aristocratic guests and fancy family members and friends with ties to royalty, okay, they're all trying to talk to him and help figure out who's going to take over the park when he dies, where's the money going to go, who's going to buy the property, who's going to carry on the vision, right? That it's not simple, obviously, this very complicated park. So what you have to realize is that all this time, what he's been doing, all this time, what's been happening to the park and this land in Opatija, is the value has just been driving up with extremely luxurious improvements. Like, this is basically a masterclass in how to skyrocket property value, okay? Turns out all you need is a big vision and a ton of capital. Ha! Okay, so anyway, so he buys this crummy land, right? And at the time it was wooden, overgrown. He bought it for cheap, like the equivalent of $400 at the time. And over the next 75 years, an abundance of exotic flowers and landscaping and so on and so forth. All this work in, He eventually dies, and the land sells for $122,000. That is like 300x in value. So at this point, the whole Villa Angiolina is owned in portions by heirs to kings and wealthy organizations and commissions that want to preserve it. Great, fantastic. Okay, Villa Angiolina is growing. It's in good hands. It's looking extravagant. Opatija is just glowing because they have this super special landmark. Okay, and that is kind of the beginning of the 20th century. But if we fast forward to right now, what does it look like right now? Since 2007, Villa Angiolina has been owned by the Croatian Museum of Tourism. They own it now. I personally feel like they're the right people to own it. And they ensure that it's being well maintained, it's as beautiful as ever, and that Opatija can be a landmark for tourists because of this place, right? Opatija locals are welcome for free. It's just an open park, and it's beautiful, and it overlooks the Mediterranean, and you feel so surrounded by beauty when you're there, and maybe even feel loverly if you're into that. And it's a critical highlight of Opatija. I would say that Iginio's dream was absolutely fulfilled. So now let's look at part 3, the part you've all been waiting for. I've only mentioned it. I've only teased it several times. The violin player on the front of the pavilion. Okay, so part 3, so we're circling back to the music pavilion. We're zooming in. Who is this guy? What's the deal with the violin player? His name is Jan Kubelík. Okay, Jan Kubelík. And if you're anything like me, the first thing you notice when you see this dude is, holy hell, 1700s dude has got the riz. Sheesh. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. Okay, Mason, why don't you keep that to yourself and focus on the music? Okay, tell us about the violin playing. And I will. So Jan's dad is an amateur violin player, which apparently means my son is going to have to become the violin player that I'll never be. And Jan is practicing from birth, basically. Jan is practicing as a child, and by the age of 5, his talent gets discovered. And then by the age of 8, he's studying at conservatory in Prague and imitating the masters. So obviously a child prodigy. And this comes at the cost of him practicing for like more than half the day, every day, his whole childhood, to the point where his fingers would bleed, right? So it's kind of one of those situations. So Jan is this incredibly talented violin player at a young age, and as soon as he gets out of school, he's debuting at all these concerts in London and Vienna, Austria, and he does all these philharmonic performances, and he's winning medals and getting recognized and just becoming wildly famous. And so how is he doing all this, right? What's going on with his technique? And this is where this gets interesting. So Jan, who's this incredibly talented young violin player, kind of has two things going for him. One, he's technically talented and flawless in every execution of a song because he's been practicing his whole life. But second, he kind of has this recklessness to him. Plays a little rough and breaks the rules a little bit and kind of colors outside the lines. He's a little twangy and does things his own way. And everyone is impressed in how he's kind of inventing a new style, if you will, by being this way. And so what I need to point out is that that's what made him so great. He releases these recordings where he plays with violin styles from kind of around the world and has all the talent of the classical masterpieces, but has that rough bad boy thing going on the whole time. And take one look at his hair and tell me that he was not fully aware that that's what he was serving. I mean, look at him. Look at that mustache. That he is too intelligent to just be lucky and stumble into fame. He's putting himself out there. He's putting that smolder on for the camera. And he's the violin heartthrob of the century, right? Everybody's saying, who's this little hunk and how the hell is he so talented? And so I wanted to hear for myself, right? So I listened to some of his music in preparation for this. And I'm no expert on classical music. I'm not going to pretend to be. But I kind of feel like I know. I kind of feel like I hear what's going on with him having this rough edge. You listen to the songs and they're not exactly like a clean storytelling. They're kind of playful and they're kind of like he's having a joking conversation with you. And I think that was groundbreaking for classical music at the time. I'm particularly talking about all of his acoustic recordings, which were particularly successful because they kind of came out at the same time as the record player was debuting, the gramophone. And so everybody had their eyes on this new technology, and it was all the rage. So as Jan's career goes on, he gets older, he starts composing more, doing incredible shows and performances. He wrote 6 concertos in his life, and of his kids, he had 8 kids. 5 of them went on to study violin too. So all in all, he's kind of like not the most famous violin player in the Hall of Fame, but there's no denying that what he was doing was really notable because he was really technically capable, and yet the wild edginess he was bringing to the songs sort of made anyone who loved him really fall in love with him. So he kind of has this small grip on the hearts of listeners who are familiar with his work. So check out his work, raise a little bit of your respect for violin, which is such a versatile instrument, and daydream about Jan playing you a serenade. So we are going to wrap up this episode of ARCHWOAH, and we'll say, what are the takeaways from looking at the little music pavilion in Villa Angiolina? So the first thing is that this park, Villa Angiolina, is the oldest park in Opatija. So aside from the way it looks and what it's doing, it holds a huge grip on Opatija's history. It was part of Iginio's vision to turn the shabby little fishing village into something great, but he absolutely did so by pouring a bunch of money into it, making it a cultural hub, and inviting people from all over the world. That's exactly the same experience that the garden caters right now. It's Opatija's center for tourism, and the development of this park is very much associated with the beginning of the tourism industry for Opatija as a city. And if you thought that visiting a beautiful park and saying, wow, everything is so pretty here, what a nice place to visit, didn't involve decades and decades and hundreds of years of money and investment and foreign interaction and cultivation and top designers working together, and a chance to learn about how much culture is packed into a small little city, then you're not really getting the full experience. So the next time you're in Opatija, think about Mr. Iginio Scarpa, think about a millionaire putting his money to good use, and bring someone you love, or spend time feeling the feeling of love, and go listen to Jan's music in your headphones at the Music Pavilion.